Dreams of crystal clear oceans with shafts of bright sunlight revealing sea turtles, destination unknown. White sand beaches lined with palms offer welcomed refuge from another world not far away. Jungles conceal the secrets of man and beast, while its creatures live in harmony. Incense floats on the air, its sweetness blends with the bowing of heads to the east. A villager launches his boat in an age-old formation. The city bustles with the sheen of a new era. A man smiling in the marketplace, a woman dancing with the moon. I dreamt of a land where all this could be so. And now I see not a dream, but a country, Malaysia. International Video Network welcomes you on this video visit to mystical Malaysia, land of harmony. Located in the tropics, Malaysia spans the South China Sea. Peninsular Malaysia is at the tip of mainland Southeast Asia, with Thailand and Burma to the north and Indonesia to the south. The states of Sabah and Sarawak are on the island of Borneo. Malaysia is a country rich in culture, customs, and traditions, the heritage of a multiracial society living in peace and harmony. To the basic indigenous cultures of the Malay people were added the mixture of Chinese, Indian, and Western values, which have helped shape modern Malaysia. 1986 estimates put the population at 16.1 million. Bahasa Malaysia is the national language, and English is very widely spoken. Islam is the state religion, but there is complete freedom of worship. The main religions in Malaysia are Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Every one of the wide variety of races has its own place of worship. Rubber is the most important crop, 40% of the total world's production, followed by palm oil, of which Malaysia is the world's largest producer, 57% of total world production. Malaysia also produces 37% of the world's tropical hardwood. On peninsular Malaysia, the country's largest city, Kuala Lumpur, and to the southwest, the coastal port of Malacca. Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia, is a curious blend of old and new. The miners and traders who first arrived here in search of tin began their settlement at the place where the Klang and Gombak rivers converge. This, quite simply, is how Kuala Lumpur was named, translating in Malay to muddy estuary. A visitor to Kuala Lumpur, or KL as it is always referred to, will be immediately struck by the unusual diversity of architectural styles. Arabesque domes and minarets, Tudor-style clubhouses, mosques and temples all stand together in a city whose growth can easily be measured by its modern skyline of high-rise shopping, office and hotel complexes. A mining town 100 years ago, today it surges ahead, fast becoming one of the most progressive cities in Southeast Asia. As the federal capital, KL is a pulsating city of 1 million. As evening approaches, a major thoroughfare in the heart of KL's Chinatown is transformed. From dawn to dusk, this is a shopper's paradise where bargains abound. But after 6 each day, this street is closed to traffic, re-emerging as a hawker's mall. Canopied stalls are assembled and wares of all kinds are placed on display in this open-air market. Beneath a blaze of light, crowds mingle amongst a wide assortment of food, clothing, and household goods. Malaysia is famous for its pewter. Selangor Pewter is the leading manufacturer known worldwide for its quality and workmanship. The history of Selangor Pewter dates back to 1885. A gentleman from China, Young Kun, left his homeland for what was then called Malaya, bringing his trade as a pewterer to a place where there was an abundance of tin, thus establishing the pewter industry in Malaysia. The traditional methods he employed of casting and hand soldering are still followed today. The first stage of production is casting. Tin ingots are melted in a furnace and hand cast into molds. The mix represents the highest standard for pewter internationally, with a composition of 97% tin and 3% antimony and copper. Modern pewter is lead-free and non-toxic. The parts once cast are then filed to remove rough edges. Polishing is next, first using a steel blade against a revolving piece of pewter. The parts of the product are then soldered together, and the final stages of hand polishing are carried out with both steel wool and a stone leaf for the proper luster. On the outskirts of the city lies a massive outcrop of limestone, the Batu Caves. Today, the way to the top is paved by a long flight of stairs, 242 steps carved into the limestone. But back in 1878, when American naturalist William Hornby first discovered these caves, he climbed up the face of the cliff alone, coming upon the cave's entrance quite by surprise. He there discovered many rare species of flora and fauna, some not found anywhere else in the world. Once a year, many of Malaysia's Hindu populace make a pilgrimage to the Batu Caves to celebrate Thai Pusam. This festival is in honor of an important Hindu deity and is marked by acts of penance and thanksgiving. Accompanied by a procession of thousands and the constant beating of drums, the devotees make their way to these permanent Hindu shrines in the cave's interior. Roadside fruit stands, a common sight for the climatic conditions in Malaysia, are well suited for the rapid growth of many exotic tropical fruits. Some of the local varieties, like the durian, king of fruits, are unsuccessfully cultivated anywhere else. City of living history, Malacca, once a small fishing village, became the greatest center of sea commerce east of India. The Straits of Malacca, linking the Indian Ocean with the South China Sea, brought here some of the finest wealth of India, China, and the East Indies. As clearly evidenced by this typical Dutch square complete with a town hall, a clock tower, and the Christ Church, Malacca saw 300 years of colonial occupation. This great port first fell to the Portuguese in 1511, subsequently ruled by both the Dutch and the British. Overlooking the Straits of Malacca, on Residency Hill, Church of St. Paul's is another historical remnant, this time of the Portuguese era. Only the walls of the church remain today. Located in the northeastern section of Malacca is the first Chinese community. Some of the most ancient Chinese relics existing in Malaysia can be found here. impressive Changhungtang Temple, or Temple of Bright Clouds, is the oldest Chinese temple in the country. The eaves of this beautiful building are decorated with carved images from Chinese mythology. Here, worshippers burn paper money and ceremonial incense. Just nearby is another place of worship, the Kamtum Kling Mosque, in turn the oldest of the Muslim mosques. A typical sight while driving on the outskirts of town, serene villages where children play against the backdrop of traditional Malay timber homes. Just off the eastern coast of peninsular Malaysia, the island paradise Pulau Tioman. Tulai, an uninhabited tropical island surrounded by white sand beaches and undisturbed coral reefs in clear blue waters, part of a group of 64 idyllic volcanic islands in the South China Sea. Nearby, the resort island of Tioman was chosen to portray the legendary Bali Hai in the classic movie South Pacific. With 3,000 miles of coastline, much of it unspoiled, Malaysia does not lack for beautiful beaches. The island state of Penang is located just off the northwestern coast of the peninsula, with the largest city, Georgetown, linked to the mainland by a 2.5-mile ferry boat crossing. Once a hideout of pirates who plundered vessels rich with cargo bound for Europe via the legendary Straits of Malacca, Penang is one of the oldest European settlements. The island's value as a British base was first recognized by an English trader and adventurer, Captain Francis Light, who in 1786 successfully negotiated the lease of this island to the British. Today, Georgetown is an intriguing city where great cultures meet, an exotic blend of Malay, Chinese, and Indian people reflected in its history, customs, and traditions. Evidenced by the wide variety of places of worship, mosques, temples, and monasteries represent the crossroads of ancient cultures. A thriving port from which Malaysia's exports find their way to the world's markets. Visitors are always taken by the narrow, congested streets, where everything imaginable is bought and sold. The trishaw, known in parts of Malaysia and particularly in Penang as the king of the road, is the direct descendant of the rickshaw, which was brought to Malaysia by the Chinese. To the disdain of motorists, they commonly slow down the flow of traffic to their leisurely pace, pedaling along with passenger or cargo aboard. The trishaw is a common mode of transport used by Malaysians of all walks of life. My stay in Georgetown began with a song. Merchants' birds sing to the humanity passing by. Shopkeepers scan the streets for potential buyers, as the daily ritual of life seems to guide shopper and shopkeeper alike. The heat of the afternoon allows us to slow our pace, and with every turn of the head, a different view, another perspective, something else to investigate. A new discovery with every step. The senses are gently assaulted. The motion of the marketplace, a shopkeeper's watchful eye, a trishaw passes by. In the park, the scribe applies his trade, assuring the communication of friends, relatives, or deals gone sour. He fulfills an age-old tradition of caring, good news or bad. Another block, and around a corner, I feel a presence. Someone here knows me. A fortune teller beckons. Without hesitation, he draws me near. I'm sure he knows my destiny. He tells me what I need to hear. On my way back, hands full with purchased goods and future assured, I know there is much I have left behind. But tomorrow is a new day, and Georgetown rises early. The home of 5,000 butterflies comprised of over 100 species, Penang's butterfly farm is reputed to be the largest of its kind in the world. This exhibition is housed in a large landscaped enclosure where butterflies of every imaginable color and size fly about unrestrained. In the hills above Georgetown, the botanical gardens boast a fine collection of tropical flora and fauna spread out over 75 acres. Monkeys inhabit the trees, roaming freely about the grounds looking to be fed. Measuring over 8 miles long and taking 39 months to build, the Penang Bridge is the longest bridge in Asia and the third longest in the world. The Kapitan Kling Mosque was built in 1800 and is one of the oldest in Penang. The dome and minaret clearly reflect Islamic architecture of Indian influence. Here, the entrance to Wat Kayamang Kalaram, a Buddhist monastery of Thai architecture. Inside the meditation hall lies the third largest reclining Buddha in the world. Behind the 105-foot statue, individual compartments store burial urns of devotees' ashes, guarded by a long row of smaller Buddha statues. This spectacular building is home of an ancient Chinese clan association, the Ku, established 100 years ago to assist Chinese immigrants arriving in Malaysia. This particular clan house, or Kung Si, is perhaps the most well-known of its kind in the country. The wood carving, stonework, and painting were done by artisans brought from China in the 19th century, taking 8 years to complete. The intricacy of design includes hand-painted walls illustrating the adventures of some of the clan's most notorious ancestors. A warm evening spent sitting outside for hours watching Chinese opera. Housed under a large tent with the accompanying musicians hidden in the wings, these actors perform traditional drama using pantomime as well as song and dance. Players never improvise, learning instead precise gestures and dialogue to tell these classical tales. Their faces are heavily painted with grease paint in patterns and colors to emphasize character and expression. Kota Baru on the east coast of the peninsula, separated from the west by a chain of rugged mountains. Kota Baru boasts one of the most well-known markets in Malaysia. Come early morning, these market women arrive from the farm with fresh produce. Every imaginable vegetable and fruit can be found here, arranged in a moving kaleidoscope of color and sound. The skills and recreations of Malaysia flourish here on the east coast. It is in this region that the traditional arts and crafts are maintained. Practically every family has its own kite. For the larger kites often used in competition, the exquisite designs are cut from thin translucent paper. Here the process is demonstrated on a small ornamental kite made instead of batik cloth. Taking years to master, giant top spinning is another of Malaysia's pastimes. Usually played during the season when the rice is ripening in the fields. This sport is reputed to improve the harvest, and often an entire village will turn out to watch the competition. The tops are heirlooms and are very heavy, made of an outer band of thick Malaysian tin to add weight and stability. An expert can make them spin for hours. Salat, the traditional Malaysian art of self-defense. Commonly performed as a ritual dance, it can be a lethal weapon if used more seriously. Batik, the art of fabric printing using wax-resistant dyes, has always been extremely popular in this country. First, a pattern is drawn on a piece of cotton cloth. Then, to certain parts of the design, wax is applied to keep the dye from coloring that section of the motif. The wax is then boiled away, and the process is repeated depending on the number of colors and the complexity of the design. These rectangular pieces of cloth are the standard sarong, tied at the waist in varying ways and worn by men and women alike. Trained to fetch coconuts, almost every East Coast village has its own baboon, well suited for this essential task. On the quieter side of the Malay Peninsula, Kota Baru is surrounded by a patchwork of typical Malay homes set amongst the rice fields and orchards. Fish and rice are the Malay staples, and here in the cool of early morning, the menfolk of this fishing village prepare to set out to sea. Colorfully painted fishing boats wait for the tide to carry them to their fishing grounds. Today's catch: cuttlefish, squid, carp, and crab. A peaceful, timeless tradition set against the backdrop of blue seas and the palm-lined sands. Occupying the north and northwest coast of the world's third largest island, Borneo, The states of Sabah and Sarawak together are larger than the peninsular Malaysia. Kuching, the capital city of the state of Sarawak, is a river town living beside and on the Great Sarawak River. In 1839, when Englishman James Brooke first made his way up this river, he did not know he was fated to become the first white Raja of Sarawak. It was James Brooke's nephew Charles, the second white Raja, that built Kuching into a modern town, and it was after his wife that Fort Margarita was named. Traveling by road 160 miles from Kuching, through rainforests, rubber and pepper plantations, and groves of oil palms to the Skrang River. A native longboat is transportation deeper into the Borneo jungle to the home of Sarawak's largest indigenous primitive tribe, the Ibans. Here an entire village lives along the riverbank housed under one roof. The longhouse, a community dwelling built on stilts, is made of ironwood with palm leaves as roofing. Sharing a common veranda outside, inside separate family units live in private compartments set off the long corridor which functions as the hub for all community life. Once the notorious headhunters of Borneo, the Iban warriors set out in huge longboats chasing trading ships out to the high seas in the days of piracy. A tattoo on a finger joint signifies a head had been taken in battle, the proof of which still hangs from the rafters in this longhouse. The blowpipe, or supitan, used for hunting, is made from hard, straight-grained wood found in the forests. The poison darts are also crafted from wood and treated with poison prepared from the ipo tree. The amount of poison required is regulated by the size of the game hunted. Maintaining a strong cultural heritage and identity, the Ibans are a proud people whose tribal life continues much as it once did. As former warriors and headhunters, their traditional art forms relate to these activities. To the sound of gong and drum ensembles, the Najat, or ceremonial war dance, is performed celebrating victory in battle. Believing the day after a full moon should be spent at leisure, the entire village remains close to the longhouse engaged in knife making, weaving, wood carving, and other productive activity essential to their daily existence. In Sabah, Southeast Asia's highest peak, Mount Kinabalu is, according to legend, haunted by the spirits of the dead. Named long ago by the region's indigenous people, Akinabalu, or home of spirits departed. This mountain was worshipped as a sacred place of eternal life. Today, as a national park, Kinabalu offers an overwhelming variety of plant life. Rhododendrons are commonly growing along its paths, with 6 of 26 species found nowhere else. Orchids are even more plentiful, with more than 1,000 species, all adding to the pleasure of exploring this majestic mountain, rising 13,251 feet above sea level. Located on the east coast of Sabah, on the island of Borneo, is the Sepilok Forest Reserve, covering over 9,800 acres of rich tropical rainforest, classified as a virgin jungle, set aside for scientific research. The reserve is rich in wildlife, but by far the most notorious inhabitant of this forest is the orangutan. One of the world's endangered species, this incredibly quiet and shy creature struggles to survive in spite of the widespread destruction of its habitat. Found in Borneo and Sumatra, the orangutan is the only representative of the great apes living outside of Central Africa. A very worthwhile effort at Sepilok is the Orangutan Rehabilitation Center. The center's purpose is to reintroduce orangutans that have been captured illegally back into the wild. As survival skills are learned, the orangutans are allowed increasing freedom in their natural habitat. While self-sufficiency develops, their diets are supplemented daily with fruit and milk from this feeding platform deep in the jungle, until such time as rehabilitation is complete and the visits to the platform trail off, eventually coming to an end. With an average lifespan of 25 to 35 years, these solitary creatures build nests each afternoon in the trees for that night's rest. Feeding on fruit, leaves, and bark, the orangutan is a large primate standing 3.5 feet tall and weighing 220 pounds. Females give birth to 3 or 4 young separately. Each remains with the mother for 5 to 7 years before becoming independent. Malaysia, a land where people mix and go their way in harmony. This country is home to a remarkable multiracial society, rich in culture. People so different in a land so varied, from the modern city to the jungles of Borneo. Its people share a common love for this, their country, unifying all of the widely divergent cultures, each with its own distinct heritage. And so now I am leaving for another land. My visit to this country has made me to feel at home. The warm smile of the Malay, the knowing eyes of the Chinese, the dance of the Iban, all make me want to stay. But alas, I must bid farewell to Malaysia, its land and its people, a place of diversity, living in harmony.